All right, good afternoon, everyone. So this is our first mobile CSP webinar of the summer for both our hybrid and our online cohorts. We have with us Jane Krause, who is going to speak to you about the Counselors for Computing program at the National Center for Women in Information Technology. We are sending packets out. Pauline, did the hybrid sites get all of their C4C packets, or those are coming?
The teachers.
They're coming, yes. And the online packets will be coming later this summer too. Online teachers will be coming later this summer too. So I am Jennifer Rosado. I'm one of the project leads on mobile CSP, and I am a computer science professor here at the College of St. Scholastica, which is in Duluth, Minnesota. We are going to talk at the end of the webinar real briefly about an opportunity for your counselors in Duluth, Minnesota this summer that we'd like you to reach out to them and encourage them to attend. But first, I will turn it over to Jane to talk to you more about the Counselors for Computing program and how it can help you recruit students for your computer science classes. So, Jane?
Thank you. Hi, Jane Krause here. I'm in San Antonio today at the ISTE conference. You've probably heard of it. It's a gathering of something like 18,000 ed tech enthusiastic teachers who are increasingly getting excited about computer science education. I was just been amazed at how many sections there are around bringing CS to all and what people in different classroom, different subject areas and grade bands can do to start introducing computational thinking. It's been pretty amazing. So I'm just back at my hotel room. It's a little bit of a shabby space, so thank you for bearing with me. But I'm really glad to meet with you today. I've enjoyed working with the College of St. Scholastica to reach out to the mobile CSP teacher trainees and talk to them about, to all of you about the role of school counselors in our effort to broaden participation in computing and to get nice, robust, and diverse compositions in our classrooms, in our computer science classrooms. So that's kind of how I'll start. We've had this project going on for a little while, and I think this is maybe the third or fourth time I've met with some mobile CSP folks, so I'm grateful to be here. I'm going to share my screen now, and we'll make sure this all happens the way it's supposed to. Let's see.
And then Jane, people, are they welcome to ask questions at any point, or do you want to save
Yes,
questions?
absolutely. And I'm not sure how you would like to do it, but maybe you want to have folks put questions in the chat, and then we could just find kind of natural spots where we could stop for questions, and of course take them at the end as well. Okay, I'm gonna share my slides with you now. We'll just get started. Let me back up to the start. Okay, so thank you for meeting with me today. Again, I'm Jane Krause from the National Center for Women in Information Technology. I'm a longtime teacher and advocate for computer science education. So here we go. So NCWIC Counselors for Computing is a program that started 7 or 8 years ago when people started understanding that counselors are real stakeholders in this whole kind of computer science education ecosystem. And my interest in reaching out to computer science teachers started several years ago when I didn't even really know what to expect when talking to computer science teachers about how counselors have a role in all of this. And so I just asked a simple question at this one convening. Could you tell me whether counselors help, hurt, or make no difference in your efforts to increase and kind of broaden participation in your classes? And they came down a third and a third and a third. And so that looked like, to me, 2/3 of a missed opportunity. So some said they either harmed or they made no difference in the teachers' efforts. And I thought, well, we have quite a bit of work to do to be thinking about how we can engage counselors as allies in this effort to do what I'm sure you're talking about a lot in your mobile CSP training. So we did a little study that I just think some of the implications are interesting to know. It was a pilot study that just gave us a sense of the counselor experience, especially in relation to computer science education. And so I just thought I'd tell you just some of the little tidbits so that when you think about your counselors in your school and where they're coming from, how you can engage with them in ways that are really fruitful and help you meet your aims. So we increasingly are kind of sharing this information, and our study was brief. It was a pilot, and we're actually in full-blown study mode now with the second, but still the implications from the pilot I think are interesting. So one of the things that we understand is that most counselors come up through a humanities or liberal arts pathway themselves, and so this shows our number of people. I think this is just something like 96 counselors, but and so this is true numbers. Whatever this represents, it's not a percentage, but as you can see, that only a few come up through a kind of a STEM pathway, and so we kind of assume that that affects their readiness to guide toward computer science. And actually, we started asking this question when counselors said, "Well, you know, I don't feel that confident because I don't have much of a STEM background myself," and so we found out indeed there's some backfilling to do to help them understand what computer science is and who's right for it, and you know what it's like in school and in the major. So that's just a little tidbit for you to remember. Their background, you know, might be different than you might need to kind of provide them with information. We also counselors don't really, they are not able, just given their busy jobs, they aren't able to take real active steps toward computer science education and career pathways because there's so many different education and career pathways, right? So how can they just focus on one like computer science education? But we found that less than a third of counselors took an active role in counseling regarding computing pathways. But the good news is after we meet with them and work with them, they do become active, and that's been a very nice result for us. So some ways that we can imagine that you can help activate them as well. When we asked who was right for computing, they answered what you might expect, you know, kids who are high achieving in math and science and things like that. And what they did not say is that creative students would necessarily be right for computing. And we thought, well, you know, we need to get across the intersectionality of computing with other disciplines and with the creative arts and just creative thinking. And that once they understood that, that might change their view of who might be right for your courses, you know, and who they might recommend pursue computer science education and careers. And so that's something that we always try to get across to them, that computing is a creative enterprise, and it overlaps into a lot of different kinds of things that kids care about. And we also always show this code.org video. You may have seen it. It was one of the early ones that they made that's called something about what the subject that most schools don't teach. And we've shown it often. And this Vanessa Hurst says, if someone had told me that software is really about humanity, that it's really about helping people by using computer technology, it would have changed my outlook earlier. And, you know, we've shown this enough where counselors, it's really frequent that they say, you know, that resonated with me. That started me thinking about computer science as a means for making the world a better place. And I care about that, and I can understand how that message might appeal to kids. And so I'm just going to dig in now to the resources that we have for you. And actually, this might be a good stopping point. Since I'm in my presenter view, maybe even you two could just read off any questions that people have, and I could respond to them. So I'm not switching back and forth and making that jarring for folks.
Sure, that's fine.
Questions?
Yeah, it looks like so far we don't have any questions, but folks should know, you know, that you can post those questions in the live chat window at any point, and then, you know, when Jane pauses, we can ask questions of her. I'll just say that the last quote that you shared is really powerful, I think, for me, and when I talk to underrepresented students in particular. Yep, that, you know, that is a real motivator for folks, so that it's not just about the technology or solving problems, but really solving problems that help people. And I think that's a key part of the mobile CSP course here too.
That's great. And, this might even be a good little juncture to stop and ask people, if I had asked you that question, if counselors help, hurt, or make no difference in what you're trying to accomplish, and I don't know if you're already teaching some type of computer science already or another STEM course of some kind, but you might just put a few words in the chat about, I've got this rock star counselor, or, I don't even know what counselors do, or you can just, maybe we could, I would love to look at the Hangout chat later and just see kind of what your response is to that question about how you kind of view them now, and how you've engaged with them. So we'll just take a second and you can put some comments in. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good. I see Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey cohorts are there. Southern Connecticut is there. And I think you all have master teachers in the room that are the ones that are working the Hangout. So teachers, shout out suggestions for your master teachers to put in the chat.
Are you seeing any themes, or?
Not yet, but maybe they're taking a moment to gather suggestions before they're typing them in. I hope. Oh, okay. I see another cohort has joined, which is good. It sounds like people are.
Oh, goodness. Maybe we'll have to have a revolving kind of webinar where we keep onboarding people. I'm not sure, or we back up to the people who joined last and kind of backfill when we're done here. Yeah.
So there was one comment here from the Massachusetts cohort. They say about 50-50 that their counselors help or don't help. So it's kind of a mix of who they're working with in their schools.
And that idea of could counselors hurt, you don't think of anybody actively trying to undermine your program or anything, but just some of the things that I've heard both students say and some computer science teachers have said is that students will go into their counseling center and the counselor might say, well, astronomy would look better on your transcript. Or, and those things are just, it's not intentionally hurting, but it obviously is coming from a place of, maybe a lack of awareness that they might not think of your students as, or the students that you wish were in your classes as being right for them. And so that's what I meant by, I don't want to make you think that there's some nefarious thing going on. But
right. No, and I think that's coming through in some of the additional comments. Gregory was making the comment that counselors just need additional background on what computer science is and what can be done with it. I think there's maybe a lack too of understanding of, now this is an official AP course, but what kind of role does computer science play for students who they are kind of like, funneling on a college track and trying to get them to take as many college courses as possible, or thinking about what best prepares them for various majors in college, and how does computer science fit into those pathways? And then there was also a comment, is it the teacher's responsibility to educate the counselors? So maybe that's a good opportunity to transition into the kit and talk about what resources are there.
Well, one of the things that you might be aware of is that they're going to have to get the information from somewhere. And so if you think about proximity, the teacher maybe is the person who's the most available and suited to kind of take that on. But I can see why you think, who has the time for that? But then again, maybe if you were just saying, I know you have counselor meetings and staff meetings within your school, or even the district ones, or could I just come in and talk to you for 10 minutes about my course? Or one of the beautiful things about computer science is there are all these amazing artifacts of learning You know, if there's a way that you could have counselors just drop in and see what kids are working on and have kids talk to them about what they're creating and what they're excited about, you know, even within your projects. I mean, just imagine sending your kids with their mobile apps over to the counseling center and saying, look what I made, you know, and having the kids be the agent for getting this information across. I think if you are building buzz in your school generally, then just take that little extra moment to think about having kids talk to counselors, or you yourself, or if there's some material that describes your course. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You know, just maybe there may be both active and sort of naturally occurring things that you might be able to sort of capitalize on in getting this information across to counselors. And of course, you know, we're trying to get them up to speed through Counselors for Computing. So when we wrap up, we'll talk about, well, if you could do this one thing, you could send them toward this this opportunity we have for them. So shall we move on now? Are there more comments you'd like to riff off,
I think
Jen?
that's good. No, we can move on. Thanks.
All right. And so we have resources for counselors, and these will be coming your way. And what I would not recommend is that you just go leave it on their desk. One of the things I hope you would do is open it up and go, oh, there's some goodies in here that I would like to use as well, because I imagine that you often work in an advising role. And so we'll talk a little bit about what the material's in there. But the best case scenario, what I've seen works best, is when a teacher gets this kit in their hands and they say, I'm just going to grab the counselor and say, let's sit down and look at these materials together. You know, and one of the things that's in there, and I'm not sure if I have a slide for, I didn't show every single resource that's in the kit, but one of the resources in there is a sheet that's just sort of to the recipient sheet that tells what the materials are inside the kit and what the intention is for each piece. And so it helps you kind of understand, without having to analyze too deeply, you know, what you have in the kit, what the use of those materials are, and I think that even it could guide conversation that you might have with the counselor about what you're intending to do, and how they can help, and how these resources can be useful. So we'll just dig in a little bit to the kit. So one of the things it has in it is a sheet that's just got a lot of the kinds of messages that we get across in our trainings, and that are important for counselors to know, just about, you know, about the underrepresentation of women in computing, and both when they're in school and in college and on into work. We're kind of changing this to also get at the benefit of the diversity of thought that comes with differences in race and gender and life experience, you know, so people start thinking, you know, we need all kinds of minds innovating. I shouldn't go on about that because it's not in here yet, but there's also information that about kind of pathways that kids can take. You can see that little table there, and we'll see some more of these in the materials themselves. But these are kind of the key messages that we try to get across in our Counselors for Computing training. And so just even kind of reading through some of these key messages with the counselors would be worth your time. You might learn something too, who knows. And then the resources that are sort of student-facing are pathway cards. So we like to imagine that no matter what kids do in their post-secondary life, there's a place for computing within it. And so each of these pathway cards starts out with an interest or need. So are you somebody who wants to serve your country? Could imagine having a technical assignment. Well, then you might consider talking to the military recruiter and seeing what type of service would be right for you, and then it goes on into what kinds of preparation that you need, and what kinds of degrees and certifications, for instance, depending on the pathway that might lead you to that kind of terminal goal of having a job in tech. And then here's how you get started now. Here's what you would do. And so with each of these, and they also have on each one median salary scale, and so and a lot of job titles. So these are the kinds of jobs that you would get coming out of community college, and this is how they pay. And one of the nice things about it is the table has both the annual salary, average annual salaries, and also we have it listed by hourly wage, because we know that kids will look at that and their eyes will pop when they imagine, you know, comparing that hourly wage to their service, their work in the service industry or whatever minimum wage job they have right now. So, so these pathway cards, I think you have 10 of each, and so we can imagine ways that you and your class, if you're talking about on beyond school, or how counselors could take these and do round robin reading, or have kids pick when they're thinking about, you know, what their next steps are in post-secondary life. But these pathway cards are useful. They're in the kit. There are quite a few of them. They're kind of, kids, they have a QR code on them too, so kids could snap them with their phone and kind of walk off with them if you want to keep them as kind of an evergreen resource that you use repeatedly. The other thing that, let's see, I don't think I have the poster in there, but we also have a big poster that comes in there that we call the merging pathways, the intersecting pathways poster, and it shows that these aren't really distinct, right? So you might leave the military and go on, and you have the GI Bill and you go on into university, or you go from community college and maybe that's your terminal degree, but you might, might go on to a four-year university, those kind of things. And so it sort of shows it in an almost infographic-y kind of way, how those relate. And then we also have a lesson plan. Either you could use it if you're wanting to recruit kids into your classes, or we wrote it in a way where we thought that counselors could. And we imagine them maybe going into a math class and doing this, and it's got activities, and it's got a slide deck, and it's got, it sort of steps people through even slide by slide what is going on in the presentation and what they might say and how to do the activities. So we'd hope that they might do this. There's the poster. So that's the Intersecting Pathways poster. So if your counselor doesn't want to put it up inside the counseling center, then put it up, you know, in your room. And then there are talking points cards that just help if you want, if counselors want to feel confidence about, you know, it helps them understand why kids should be getting involved in computer science and information technology, and then also just gives them the words, you know, that they might use when they're talking to kids or talking to parents.
I think those are really helpful for teachers to take a look at too.
Yeah,
because you often meet with a parent and a kid, right, to talk about that. So they're helpful for counselors and teachers.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so it's just those kind of bite-sized messages, you know, and kind of helps you wrap your mind around kind of key points, and you know, that it's meaningful work and high-wage work, and it's flexible and it changes the world and all that. And then, of course, then how the other side is about how a young person begins to prepare. And then these are coming soon. We have these really neat posters that we're developing with Google. Right now, the other thing that's in your C4C kit, I really should have taken more time to update what's in the kit, because you have more things. You have this really cool magazine. You might have heard of it. It's called Careers with Code, and Google put it out last fall. They have a second edition coming out this fall, but it's got these spreads that are really cool. These really nice resources that get at, you know, all the intersections between computer science and other things kids care about. So we kind of refer to this as CS plus X. And so this is a poster that gets at a lot of the those intersections. And so with it, this poster's coming, and we'll be sending these out to you in addition to the kit. They're still in development. But then along the right side, there's some profiles of people who actually are involved in those things. So we think they're relatable profiles, and we think that you'll all like these posters. Here's another one. This is Life and Code, the idea being that computer science is part of your daily life, even when you don't see it. And so it just kind of digs into that a little bit. We are swapping out, and again, this is based on spreads inside of the Careers with Code magazine. And we decided we didn't want to have that Call of Duty Black Ops kind of example about gaming. So we changed that. We just really didn't want to be promoting single what is that, single shooter, whatever kinds of gameplay. But we're swapping that one out. But this is pretty much what the poster looks like. And it gets at just all the different ways that computing is in our lives, and even when we're not thinking about it. And one of the things that I've heard people who use the magazine do is they say, you know, with kids, is they say, you know, think about all these things that we're computing is sort of just embedded in our lives. And one thing that computer science is, it isn't just inventing all these things, it's also improving them. So think about any of these applications of computing in your life, and is there anything in that you have now that's, you know, technology that you use now that you just wish worked better? You know, if you could get under the hood and make it work better, well, that's computer science. So it's the successive improvements of our technologies, not just the inventions of them. Here's the last one. And this is one, getting back to that theme that we talked about before, where it showed Vanessa. The idea that computer science is making the world a better place. And it's just lots of different examples about computer science out in the world, making everything better. One of the things that we know, you know, when you talk about differences between boys and girls, really other than biologically, there aren't that many. We kind of tout them as if there's true differences, and a lot of it has to do with who gets the messages and the support to get involved in tech, right? Rather than that they really have some kind of computer science gene or anything like that. There's sort of the privilege of advanced preparation. But the idea being that that all kinds of kids can get involved in computing and make these changes in the world. And so they just, the girls a little bit more than boys. That's where I was going with this thought. Boys slightly like computing for computing's sake. You know, they like to know that they kind of can create things, and they like computer science just for its own sake. But girls slightly more than boys care about what they accomplish with computing. There's just this sort of little distinction. So we wanted to make sure that we had this poster too that kind of appeals to that sensibility. And so one other thing we have going, and we expect that we'll have a campaign that will be coming to counseling centers. We'll make sure the mobile CSP teachers, counselors get involved in this, is a See Yourself in Computing campaign, where we send out Google Cardboard VR viewers, and have expressions of computer science. So imagine a kid, you know, like we were saying that counselors don't actively guide toward computer science, but imagine taking advantage of passive opportunities. So a kid's coming to the counseling center for some reason, we don't know why, but they have to sit and wait for a minute, and they see this this cardboard, and with a little, within a few seconds, you know, are in having a VR experience that exposes them to computer science. And with every one, there's the message, and ask your teachers and counselors how you can get involved. And so this is in development, and we're really hoping that we have it ready by CS Ed Week in December. So it's just something to look forward to in terms of more of the resources that NCWIT and C4C can provide for you. And then did you have a question or something you wanted to say, Jen?
Just that there was a comment from one of the teachers about how they might integrate, and I'll probably not say this correctly, but Navions and things like Road Trip Nation, so tools that counselors might use with students to help them explore interests and careers. I don't know if you know of any kind of integration pieces that are happening there where they might be, you know, working to integrate computer science careers. I think the posters that you were just showing actually do a nice job of highlighting some careers or things people might not have thought of that use computer science.
Yeah, two real brief comments on that is, that's one of the big messages that we want to get across to counselors is that you, if they're savvy enough, they can talk with kids about, that field that you're interested in. It wouldn't hurt to have some computer science under your belt too, because that's your superpower, right? When within your field, if you even minored in computer science or had some computer science, you could really accomplish a lot. So that's a message we like to get across. The other concern we have, and some challenges that we've sort of investigated, are the Naviance and the other career assessment instruments that kids use. It's sort of like the past predicts the future with some of those tools, where they're not very responsive to changes in, there's a lot of emerging careers that we're always talking about how we're preparing kids for careers that haven't even been invented yet. But one of the things we can be pretty sure is that computer science is going to have a role in it, right? And so one of the things we advise counselors around is when you get those career assessment results back and you're reviewing them with kids, that's a good time to talk about the intersections of what that report comes out, because I tell you, it's not going to say that they're suited for computer science. It's just there's something wrong with the algorithms. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to make these more agile and more responsive to changes in the world, rather than looking back at patterns. There's the predictive validity of those instruments is kind of horrible. That counselors would take that moment when they get those results and talk about, again, those intersections of computing with the kinds of results that come back from those assessments. Any other comments about that?
Nope, I think we're good for now.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's it's all kind of nuanced, but people get it. One of the things that's been great is when we work with counselors is they really are looking for opportunities for their kids. And when they start seeing computer science as kind of an equity and social justice concern, they really become active. And so we post it that way. We talk about, a lot of people kind of make the business case for why we need diversity in computing. And then there's a social case, which is, we need all kinds of minds, like I was saying before, to contribute, because that innovation takes all kinds of minds and a better map to our populations too, in terms of the services and products that they need. But then we also talk about the equity case that everybody should have access to these creative and high-paying and interesting jobs. And so when we talk to them kind of about that equity case, that's really sticky with them. They see computer science as kind of a bootstrapping sort of opportunity for their kids. And then I just wanted to tell you really briefly what happens when we get involved with counselors. This is kind of an eye chart, but I'll just briefly say that those two columns on the left, when we work with counselors, when we do counselor professional development, we hope that they are doing those two things on the left side. That at school, that when they're working with students and with families, that they're recommending CS classes and extracurricular opportunities for kids. And every counselor has an obligation. Every counselor who's working on the kids' post-secondary planning has and in career planning has an obligation to work with kids each year in certain ways around career exposure. And so just making sure that computer science is in there, and again, being responsive to the results of the career assessment instruments and things like that is useful. And we also like them to just keep CS top of mind when they're talking to kids about their plans. And one of the things you might not have awareness of is that counselors are often involved in the master calendar, getting the courses slotted across the programs across the days and across the semesters. And if they could make sure that computer science isn't butting up against or at the same time as the only choir class, for instance, you know, so making computer science favorable on the calendar is one thing that counselors can do. And then, of course, advocating, just like you do probably, for CS with other staff in the building. And then they often we still see within there, I won't go through all of these, but we also see that it's in their purview to just work at the district level, really, and anything that kind of the intersections with your schools is that they can be promoting computer science education, and as you do, probably influencers around computer science. And then the other things on the right, I won't go into those, but we do a big kind of leadership development with counselors now, and we have people who, especially coming out of trainings like we're going to talk about next, we get this cohort of people who are really on fire, and they go out and they work with other counselors. They also work with pre-service counselors, and they've been helping us develop and review resources and all kinds of things. And I'd like them and you to imagine that they're part of the CS education community, you know, and so if they can, has seen counselors more and more kind of saying, you know, we are allies in this. One of the things people think is counselors are just there for the kind of the social emotional stuff and managing and doing scheduling and helping with the testing management and all those things. But they really say, you know, our primary goal is to get healthy, happy people graduating from high school and going on to a good life. And so everything that they do is really in service to kids' education and getting them successfully through school and on to life. And so being part of the computer science education community is just one facet of their kind of their role. So we'll just now talk a little bit about mobile CSP and the opportunity that's coming up next. I'm going to let Jen lead with that, and then I'll kind of follow up with what's happening for counselors and what we're hoping will be available to them in the next couple weeks.
Sure. So we are hoping to have a workshop in Duluth, Minnesota here at the College of St. Scholastica with our new mobile CSP Immersion Week opportunity this summer. So we really want to be able to connect with the counselors at the schools that offer mobile CSP and make sure that those counselors understand, like Jane was saying, what computer science education can mean for kids, and in particular a little bit about mobile CSP and what that might look like in their schools. And so we'd like to invite them to come to Duluth for 2.5 days. They would get their travel expenses paid for to come here. Their housing and their food is all provided. They just need to complete an application, and then during those 2.5 days, they're going to get a whole set of training around both how to talk to kids about computer science, as well as learning about some of those equity issues, and getting to try out some of the mobile CSP lessons and some other kind of computer science lessons that'll give them an idea for what computer science is all about.
Well, thank you. That was the part where I thought that you couldn't have said it better. That's some of what they'll be learning, and that link that you see, the www.mobilecsp.org, C for C, is the one thing that you could write down and share with your counselors, and it takes them to this page. And you see this web page represented here, and down at the bottom of it there's a link where they can click through and express their interest, so that we'll put them on a list and then be contacting them when the we have I don't know how much I want to say, but we have been informed that the grant proposal, the grant was funded that supports this project. It's just that the money hasn't started flowing yet, and so it's a bit of a challenge for us. So we kind of explain that in the materials for counselors and say, you know, just hang tight, you know, save the date, get ready for a lot of fun, and join us in Duluth. And one of the things I'll just very quickly do is I'm going to click to the agenda. This again will be a little too dense for you to be able to see very well, but I just counselors also when they, I think we have the draft agenda on the page actually, and if we don't, we will make sure it is there just so they can click through and kind of get a preview. Jenna, I don't know if you remember.
I'll make sure. I'll check afterwards and make sure.
So people could go, well, what I traveled to what to do what, and they could click through the agenda, and I'm just going to open it up really quickly here. So they would come in on Sunday, the 16th. And then we'd get introduced. We've got some, so I'm sorry, this is it's kind of skipping around. It's a little hard to see, but you know, so starting out with why we gather and why expanding access to computer science matters, and then what are the new courses like, and why, you know, what are they, and how and why are they different from what's come before, and we'd go through an introductory mobile CSP lesson with them, and we really always in our C4C workshops, we have people try their hand at computer science because they go, you know, and I'm sure you know this, but they say, it causes me to think differently. It makes me use a part of my brain that I'm not used to using, and it kind of hurts, and I kind of like it. And so it's nice to have them actually experience the courses. I mean, imagine that if they were familiar with the actual class that you teach. So that's part of what goes in. What's that?
I was just going to say they might find out it's not as hard as they think it is too.
That too, right? Right. Yeah. Yeah. So and so we just have lots and lots of different kinds of activities planned where people would meet. They would meet women in computing. They'd meet some college students. They would get to tour St. Scholastica, right? College tours are big on a counselor's program always. Just lots of things about career choice. We know a lot about what kids are responding to when they make their choices, and we dig into that some. And I won't go through all of this, but as you can see, we end with counselors going away with a plan. It's like, what are you going to do differently? And we also do kind of give them a little taste of what our leadership development is and how they could actually influence other counselors to get on board with CS as well. So that's probably, I'm going to stop. I think I am. Let me stop screen sharing.
Sounds good. I just put a prompt out there.
There you
see
go.
if there are any more questions there. Yep. And Cassie just posted in the chat window for those. She's got some email templates about how to reach out to your counselor and talk to them about Immersion Week or talk to them about your classes. So you can check those out. But I don't know if you have other questions, folks, for Jane or me.
I would like to see those as well. And I don't know why I'm not privy to the group chat. So but if there are comments in there that
it's just because we're in the Hangout on Air version now, and so the group chat is only between us, and then there's a different page where everybody else who's watching gets to chat. But different page. Otherwise, I think we can leave some time for the hybrid sites to discuss, you know, actionable items that you might want to do, or how you might want to band together and do some things in your area at the hybrid sites. Those counselor for computing kits will be coming out in the next couple of weeks, definitely before the end of the PD. Hopefully the, you know, for the hybrid folks, you'll get it during week 4. For the online folks, you might be getting it closer to week 3, but week 4 for sure. Darcy's asking, is there anything else besides the event in Minnesota that counselors could go to?
Yeah, well, you know, whenever we are able to get kind of a critical mass of counselors together, we come and do a day-long workshop. So, and that in a lot of ways is sufficient. This is just like the deluxe gilded and Trump Tower version of things in Duluth. So if we can, we also go to counselor conferences, the statewide, just like CSTA for computer science teachers. The ASCA, the American School Counselor Association, is a place where we meet with counselors as well. And we do put on workshops. And again, I've got this kind of growing counselor leadership crew, and we're happy if we have people who are kind of in your area, depending on where you are in the world. You could tell me, and you know, it can be as much as going to a district counselor meeing, or you know, it doesn't have to be the full meal deal to get these concepts across. And if there was if the conveners of all your different trainings were collecting up and making a list of people that we should follow up with, because you want to see professional development coming to counselors in your area, then you know, we could certainly work on that. That's about our favorite thing to do.
And there are definitely some good groups of folks in Massachusetts, New Jersey, Connecticut that have some momentum in those areas.
Yeah.
And, for sure.
Yeah, and we actually have a C4C workshop happening in Connecticut this fall. And so we'll be getting that information out to all of you then. And let me think what the other ones are that are happening this fall. Washington, Georgia. Top of mind, I can't necessarily think of them. But you know, the other thing we could do is think about doing a webinar. If you'd like to, you know, if we want to put something like that across, we do counselor webinars as well. Sure.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much, Jane, for joining us today. I appreciate you taking time out of the conference. And
yeah. I'm going to go get on a plane now. And I'm just so glad that you were able to put this opportunity together, and that I was able to meet with all of you. So best of luck to everybody on your mobile CSP training. I know you're probably having a ball and working real hard, and best to you all.
Thank you. Pauline,
Okay.
Any last words? You good?
Thank you, Jane.
Thanks, Pauline. Right. Thanks, Jen. Bye, everybody.
Yep, you bet. Okay.
Bye.